With so many new disc golf manufacturers popping up over the past couple years, it can be really hard to decide what to put in your bag, especially if you're a newer player like me. And one of those kind of new kids on the block was Lonestar Discs, a company based out of Texas that I'd heard a lot of really good things about, but as everybody knows, in disc golf, there are way more opinions than there are people. So I wanted to test their plastic out for myself. I didn't have a massive following on YouTube yet, but I reached out to them, and to my surprise, they miraculously wanted to send me out some discs. When I finally got the package, since I'm living on the road in a van, it normally takes me an extra couple weeks for normal people, I was surprised to see that it had literally every single mold that Lonestar made at the time. So to see if Lonestar could even compare to like the more established companies that I was bagging, I switched my whole bag to Lonestar for a week. And here's the finale of that saga. If you're new here, my name is Anthony. I travel full-time in a van, originally not for disc golf, but becoming more for disc golf, and I'm trying to beat par at 100 courses while I travel the US and get good enough to cash at a Pro Tour event and eventually play on the Pro Tour. It's kind of becoming my dream now. If you want to follow that journey, subscribing to the channel would mean a lot to do so. So the majority of my time with this Lonestar bag, I spent in Billings, Montana, which is about 4,000 feet above sea level. So as you see some of these shots, just keep that in mind. Things are going to fly a little bit more stable. Now the great thing about Billings for this challenge is that there are 5 main courses, 2 18-hole courses, and there's 3 9-holes, which actually ended up being perfect for figuring out the bag. But before I can get out there and play, I had to unbox everything and give my first impressions, but that was in a video that you might have already seen. What I haven't shown yet is what happened immediately after I filmed that. The first course I played with this new bag is called High Sierra. It's 4.0 rated on UDisc, and to be honest with you, I think that's about 4.0 rating points too high for this course. And I decided that since I'd never thrown any of these discs, and this would be my first throws with them because I didn't go to a field first, I would make sure that I threw all 20 of the molds that they had in this round. The only main issue with this is I had a very long streak of beating par at courses that I was playing blind, and the video that I filmed there, which is going to come out, is a part of a series that I'm going to call Crash Course, where I try to crash courses across the country and beat par at over 100 of them while I'm living and driving in the van. I was hoping that this wouldn't affect much in my ability to keep that streak, but this was the press conference that I gave right after playing that course.
I just had the worst round on this channel's history. Just the winds were consistently over 20 miles an hour, I checked, and it's just a big valley. It's hard to say what I like and don't like about these discs. I haven't played in winds even close to this. Like, I haven't played in conditions close to this in so long. I'm just more frustrated than anything about that play. But there are some discs that I think made a highlight, especially in the wind. I think the Bull Snake so far is like the best in the wind. Obviously it's 3204 super overstable. First ever throw with it, threw it like 150 feet because of how overstable it was, and I was not expecting it.
Oh, that's so stable. Oh my gosh.
Armadillo, I'm gonna have to figure out. I thought it'd be more stable like a Bird, like a premium plastic Bird. It's not as stable as that, but it is slow, which is good. Really, I didn't have a lot of other big takeaways from the other discs, except that on one hole, I threw the Texas Ranger, and it just flew exactly like I wanted to. Felt so good out of the hand. Really thinking this is gonna be my go-to mid-range. I was actually surprised at how much I enjoyed throwing the lighter discs that they sent me. They sent me 2 155-ish grams. One was a curl that I threw on a 460-foot hole, but about 400 feet uphill. And then the other one was a 7-speed Guadalupe here. 7, 5, -2, The wind assisted on both of those tailwinds, but interestingly, the Bowie, not as super overstable as everyone says, pretty much like an overstable destroyer, kind of like my Rives before I beat them in. And then my Warbird is like my Rives as it gets beat in. So I'm really excited for these 2 discs to throw them. I only threw them maybe once off the tee each because I wanted to give all the fairways a chance, and there's way more fairways than there are distance drivers. So far, I'm excited about the plastic. Almost all of it feels really, really good. I'm just hoping that I get a chance to play somewhere where it's not this amount of wind and hopefully some more trees and obstacles to try to shape shots around, but I'll see you after that round.
So obviously I definitely needed to take some time to learn how to throw each of these discs, but also an important thing with learning my bag was making sure that I was throwing the disc, not trying to replace a disc that was in my bag before. Because all these discs were new, where I had a lot of beat-in discs, and discs just fly differently, and that's okay, and probably a good thing. I honestly didn't expect this at all, but the 3 9-hole courses that are around Billings were perfect for figuring out putters, mids, and fairway drivers respectively. The first one of those was Hillner Park, just outside of Billings, where the average hole length is only 195.3 feet. This was perfect for really figuring out all of their putters, as well as some mids, because some of the holes were a little bit longer or had big sweeping hyzers like this one.
Dude! Oh, almost landed on top and then hits the cage. What?
And that full playthrough, just like every other video that we're going to talk about that already isn't on the channel, is going to come out in the future. But don't worry, I'll get to all my thoughts on basically every single disc at the end of this video. Now those two courses were the same day. So the next morning, bright and early at 8 a.m., I decided that I should probably go back to High Sierra and beat par because I didn't want to leave a course in Billings that I hadn't beat par at. But I still decided that I needed to throw every single mold during that round at least once. And this is what it all came down to. Here we are at hole 17, 311 feet out to the pin there. Oh, I did not put that wide enough. That's totally on me. Here we are. Oh my gosh. Oh my, what the frick, dude? Come on, as long as we can take a par here, I'm happy. No, what? Oh my gosh. That just came out of my hand so bad. What? No, no! Get in the freaking basket! I don't have anything to say. I can't believe I didn't beat par again. This is not a hard course. Okay. So later that same day, and for some reason, literally at the hottest point of the day, I decided to go to the next 9-hole course that was in the area, which is Emmanuel Baptist Disc Golf Course. Similar to the first 9-hole, this was perfect for figuring out one section of the back, and this time it was mid-ranges, with the average hole length being 257.3 feet. I did decide to do kind of a fun challenge with this video that you'll see when it comes out later, but even with 100-degree heat and some relatively serious wind, I was able to get a much better handle on the mid-ranges in Lonestar's lineup, and there was a 400-foot bomber hole, so we could really see how far we can push a lot of the distance drivers. I'm gonna throw all three of them just to see how they all launch out there, but the one that counts for me is going to be the Warbird, and then the curl will be my second, and we'll just throw the Bowie for fun. Oh, get off the ground, get stable. Never gave that a chance at all. Oh yeah, that's definitely the disc. That is under the basket. Why did I not throw that first? Okay, I stand corrected. These discs can bomb, even into a headwind. I think that's over 400 feet. But apparently I hate my body because I wasn't done playing for the day. Right in the middle of Billings is what's called the #1 park course in Montana. It's Pioneer Park, and it's another 9-hole, but just like we were stepping up from 195 to 257, the average hole length here was like 330 something feet, which was really solid to figure out my fairway drivers. But to be completely honest with you, my fatigue really started to catch up with me here. I ended up playing 3 rounds of the 9 holes just because I was trying to be par at it. But even being so tired, I was still able to get a relatively good handle on how those discs flew. Because I was able to essentially look at all 4 of the different types of discs that they made at these different courses, it made me really confident going into the next day where I was going to really put all this to the test. When I took to the course that Friday, I had already played 105 holes of disc golf in the past 48 hours alone. All of that was pretty much in service of trying to figure out how Lonestar discs flew and if they would be suitable replacements for the big manufacturers or even just compare well to them. But I fueled up, stretched out, and you'll have to check the last video in this series, which I'll link at the end of this one, to see exactly how I shot on that course. But all this to say, it gave me the confidence to head back to High Sierra and hopefully never have to think about that course again until you make a video about how you played it 3 times and couldn't get a handle on it. After shooting a U-Disc top 10 all-time score at the course of the day, wait, I wasn't supposed to say, hey, Anthony, can you cut that out, please? Well, I had some confidence coming back to High Sierra, and I also decided that I didn't need to throw every single mold in their lineup that time that I was playing the course, because some of them I didn't enjoy as much as others, and there were some shots that you just didn't need to throw any of these discs on. You're not gonna throw your whole bag at every single course. I didn't throw the disc great because I was so tired and didn't think about shooting a great round, just thought about beating par. I was able to go bogey free finally, take 3 birdies, so I was down 3, never having to go back to that course ever again, and I hope it gets turned into either a better course or something else. That's probably my least favorite course I've ever played. So after this whole week of just playing with their discs and the whole saga of learning them and actually playing some pretty good rounds, I think it's only fair that I give all my opinion on all their discs. All right, well, we started this video in Billings, Montana, so only logical to finish it in Columbus, Ohio, baby. Don't think about that too much. Let's talk Lonestar Plastic, because honestly, it feels pretty good. And the more I throw more discs, even though I've only been playing for about 7.5, 8 months, the the more I realize most companies have just really good plastic, really good discs. You just have to find what you like. And honestly, a lot of times that can just be the name, the player that's sponsored by the company, or just the feel of the plastic itself. Talking about all the putters, I like their putter lineup, honestly. This Armadillo I got in a base plastic. I think it's their Victor 1 plastic, which is a putter plastic instead of a premium one. It might be a little more stable, not in this plastic, but even at about 4,000 feet of elevation, this thing was flipping for me. Doesn't go very far past the basket, but if you'd like to throw straight shots, or maybe your arm speed isn't that fast, this could be a really good kind of alternative to the Berg, which is a little bit more overstable, and this will be much more point and shoot. Jackrabbit honestly has some sneaky overstability to it, definitely a wind fighter. And then the Bull Snake, I actually bagged this for a while because it's like a slower zone, 3204, so not very glidey. You're not gonna be able to throw this thing very far. The reason I took it out of my bag is because I had zones that I was really comfortable with, and I realized I was getting enough touch that I didn't really need to worry about overshooting it. And then second, this rim is so deep right here. If you can notice, this is really encroaching on my hand right here, which is kind of funny because the next disc, the Harpoon here, I thought I would really like. I was really looking forward to it because it has the same profile as like a Zone or a Harp, but the rim is, they like took part of the rim from this and put it onto the Bull Snake. Both of these are pretty solid discs. I just could never get a handle on the Harpoon. If you have smaller hands or smaller fingers, this might be good for you, but I never felt comfortable releasing this because it always felt like it was gonna fall out a little early. Whereas the Bull Snake, I always felt like I was gonna grip block it a little bit and really have to focus on my release. Maybe a premium plastic will be a little bit better in these, but that brings me to like their mainstay putter, the penny putter. And honestly, for both throwing and putting, this thing felt really good in the hand. It feels so good to throw, and I was putting with it while I was playing all those courses and really didn't mind how it's popping out of my hand. It has good glide. And so if you're looking for a putting putter and you wanna support a Texas company, penny is pretty solid. I think one of the places that Lonestar thrives is in the mid-range department. The Harpoon is technically mid-range. I think it's a 4-speed. And then they have these other 4 mids right here that honestly cover almost anything that you would ever need. If you like the feel of these and you needed a mid-range that was understable, one that was kind of just point and shoot, one that faded pretty consistently, and then one that was just super beefy and utility disc, you can just take these 4 discs, the BB6, the most understable, the Texas Ranger, maybe my favorite disc in their whole entire lineup. That's just the point and shoot. The Midi right here, their more overstable version, and then the Walker, which is kind of like my Justice. These 4 discs are such a solid mid-range lineup, and these plastics feel so good, especially this Texas Ranger. This is like that plastic that feels like ESP, and if I just needed to like replace anything in my bag with a straight point and shoot mid-range, this will probably go in. Fairways and distance drivers, there's honestly a lot of options here. Let me give you what I like. Fairways, which are all of these guys, all the different molds here, there's a lot to like, especially if you have a slightly lower arm speed and you're trying to get into that 7 or 8 speed range. The Guadalupe here and the Mockingbird are really solid. They both are pretty understable. The Mockingbird a little bit more so than the Guadalupe. The Guadalupe is gonna have a lot more fade, but one of my favorite molds from them was the Dome. I actually took it out of my bag recently because when we got down to closer to sea level, instead of being 3,000 or 4,000 feet up, this basically was just a roller disc for me at this point. Did have a lot of utility for like big sky anhyzer shots, but if you have a lower arm speed, this would probably be my favorite driver for you. I'm gonna give this to my sister today because we're in town, and I think this is gonna be like her go-to driver. Super solid disc. The Dos Equis I never got along with for some reason. This is my favorite stamp out of all of them too though. And let's just talk about their stamps. Their stamps are so cool on a lot of these. Like, they're not stock ones. Texas Ranger, BB6, my Bull Snake might also be one of my favorites right here. Such cool stamps. But this thing just doesn't have a lot of glide, and maybe if you're like Chandler Kramer needing like an 8-speed disc that you have so much forehand torque that you don't want to turn it over, this would be a good disc for you. I just never got along with it very well. These 3 discs are pretty familiar to me just in terms of the slots in my bag. The Lariat, super point and shoot, really glidey. This thing flies. It's kind of like a beat-in Thunderbird. The Thunderbird is pretty similar to this disc, just utility, slightly overstable, gonna hold straight for a while and then fade. And then the Chupacabra is just beef. It's like more overstable than a Firebird, less overstable than a Tilt, but if you need something that's only gonna dump to the left and you're not gonna be able to throw it more than about 300-ish feet, this is the disc for you. All right, let's talk distance drivers. I only have 4 of their 5 molds because the Tombstone came out after I had gotten all these, and I haven't gotten my hands on it to try it out yet. But the Tumbleweed is what, if you're watching European Open, you saw Chandler Kramer just throw crazy forehand rollers with this disc, and I think this is probably one of the best roller discs out there. Next is the Curl, which I thought I was gonna like a little bit more than I did. I didn't not like this disc, but I throw 11.6, -1.2 Grace, and this is 11.5, -1.2. And this disc just isn't quite as glidey as the Graces are. Maybe it's because it's not quite as domey out of the box, and it's a lot more understable than I expected it to be. So it does want to go more to the right, which is really good if you have a lower arm speed and you're trying to get into that 11 speed category and find something that's going to fly far for you and not just dump out to the left. And then there are 2 main distance drivers, which are the discs that you might have heard of from Lonestar, the Bowie and the Warbird. These discs honestly flew a little more similarly to me than I expected. This is a 12 speed apparently, this is a 13 speed. They both have like 5 or 6 glide, -1, 3. But honestly, I kind of threw these a little bit interchangeably. But this thing, honestly, everyone says it's so beefy. I think there's just a misconception with that because it just holds whatever line I put it on. If I put it on a hyzer line, it's just gonna go out there for a while on hyzer. If I throw it on an anhyzer line, it's gonna hold the Annie for a while before it starts to fade to flat and maybe come back if I give it enough time to do so and enough height. I think the reason people think that the Bowie is so overstable is because it's fast. It's a 13 speed and the parting line is pretty high. So it's gonna be overstable if you can't throw it at a 13 speed. So if your arm speed is slower, it's definitely gonna be more beefy, but it's definitely just a solid disc. Even if you just look at the numbers, it's a -1.3. It's not even a 0.3 like some of my rides. The Warbird, I thought was gonna be a little bit less beefy than the Bowie, but it was just as beefy, if not a little bit more. This might just be my run, might just be these two plastic, because this isn't as domey as other Warbirds that I've seen. But if you're looking to try out some new distance drivers, these are definitely worth a shot. But overall, if you're looking to try out some new plastic, you're just interested in a Lonestar, I don't think you can really go wrong with almost any of the molds, especially if you have different needs that you're wanting. Like some of them I don't like personally, but it's just because I don't throw that type of shot or that type of disc, but none of them are necessarily bad molds. The worst one to me, which I'm kind of disappointed about, was the Harpoon, just because of how shallow it is. I have small fingers and my fingers are barely resting up inside there. That was just a little bit disappointing to me. But other than that, I did not have a lot of problem with Lonestar. If I had to throw Lonestar back, I think I'd still be a pretty solid disc golfer because ultimately it's about you and your practice instead of the disc that you're throwing. And I'm gonna throw it back to Anthony in the booth. So if you want to check out Lonestar, check out the links down in the description. Some are affiliates, some just link directly to them. If you want to support me, liking this video would definitely help, or just checking out the next video right over here, which was that final day where I went and played the best course, in my opinion, in Montana. And I'll see you there.